Welcome to The Mix, a fusion dance podcast where we dive into the world of blending dances and all that comes with it. We're talking about everything from the highs of nailing that perfect combo to the lows, emotional, and mental challenges and more. And if you're new to the dance scene, don't worry, we've got you covered with practical tips to help get you started, feel comfortable, and most importantly, have fun. So come on in. We can't wait to dance with you. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mix, a Fusion Dance podcast. My name is Trang.
Hello. My name is Caitlin.
And today we are talking about a very, probably for a lot of people, uncomfortable topic, but it's come up and we think it's really important to talk about it. And when we started Fusion University recently, one of the things I didn't realize was HR issues coming up, or more like not for us, but cases and like, hey, people, I'm gonna say warning us by giving stories about how certain people in different dance scenes make them feel uncomfortable. And FYI, people are like, oh no, this fusion. It's like it happens in every dance scene. You know, you and I go to different dance scenes, so we kind of
Mhm.
get worried about it, but more so as organizers. And I think in a way I am grateful for it, but it does dampen the joy out of it. But it is important, to know. I'd rather know than not know.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that we don't like to talk about, and I think it's especially if you're newer to dance, if you're newer to the social dance scene, social dance world, you know, it can be so much fun, and you're learning all these new things, you're meeting all these new people, and they all live wildly different, exciting lives, and it can be so great. But at the same time, and I've heard this story all too many times where a person will go in and they're enjoying it and things are amazing and it's so good, and then there's a slip or there's a person who, and again, this is every dancing, everything from from swing to salsa to bachata to fusion. There are always situations where people can cross lines or boundaries and go further than just a dance. And I think it's an important thing to talk about, where making sure that that you're aware and that you're safe in these places sometimes, and unfortunately sometimes has to be something that you're proactive about, because not everyone is even aware that it's an issue, you know?
I think there's what's hard is that with
Yeah.
people that make others feel unsafe, there's like different variations, right? There's a very gray zone, right?
Mm.
Obviously, if someone came in and punched you in the face at a dance social, it's like an immediate, like, all right, this guy's
Yeah.
out or this girl's out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very more
One would hope.
Sicardi. Okay. But no, for I think like some things that came up for me was like I can see someone saying like, I don't know these people. Is it my part to say something, right?
Yeah.
Or I heard that this person is sketchy, or this person gives me really weird vibes, but I
Yeah.
don't want to say anything because I don't want to start rumors. And I know that's really hard because sometimes they can go that way depending on the person, if their intentions is like, the person at Karen at work, it's always like starting rumors or be like, oh, that person sent me a period at the end of the sentence. So she probably hates me, and you're just like, maybe she
Yeah.
doesn't. Maybe her
Yeah.
grammar's just, she didn't use spell check. I don't know. But then there's other people where this happened to me a lot in my friends of just like something's off, but I don't have the evidence to say like something about this person, or else people will be like, oh, you're just judging this person right off the bat. You barely know them, but I do think sometimes intuition plays, and it's so hard because you can't, at the end of the day, people do need evidence. Like even in HR, they're just like, can you tell us the time, the date? Like we need, and that's if HR at a company is on your side, like we need
Yeah.
facts. You can't, we need email trails, texts, that kind of stuff. Or even um, when they do cases and reports and stuff like that, they need like, hey, so what happened this date? Like even a journal entry, and that's dated and stuff, like just records of personal um things like that. So I think that it's so hard to and then there's also like the if someone's in a relationship and they were abusive relationship and you hear about that, like do you as an organizer, or do you like even consider that? You're just kind of like, I only consider it if they are doing something on my territory or on my grounds at my dance social,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this is the tricky part because I know some people are like, hey, let them deal with their relationship. Yeah, because people can be messy in relationships. So it's like, all right, you know what, you guys talk it out, whatever, or try to be mature about it, whatever. And because like where's the jurisdiction of where dance
Mhm.
organizers or people in the dance community step in? But even some people might be could be like, this isn't, um, I can see coming to a new dance social and being like, I don't have a part in this. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
here to vibe and that's it. But
I'm just here for the vibes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here to dance, but I wonder at what point do you start thinking, is it like how many, if you've been there for like months or years, do you
Mm.
start thinking like, okay, maybe I'm gonna start watching out for my dance community? You don't, people don't have to, but it's also you see the new faces, right? And
Yeah,
I was a new face and I was like, this is amazing. Everyone's so nice to me. But also I didn't know everyone deep down. I didn't know you didn't like, yeah, I didn't know anyone outside of dance. Like you just hung out at dance and that was it. I can see someone saying like, okay, well, if it doesn't happen in my territory or on my like on the dance floor, or in the studio, then doesn't matter. But I think people don't realize the approach of preying on people.
Mm.
And when you prey on people, for example, you might chit chat with them. It's really hard. It's really subtle. It's like you chit chat with them, get to know them a little bit more, and then you ask for their number. Sometimes some people do not do it really smoothly, and you can tell like, okay, you're being way too obvious. You're being too desperate. You're only here to just try to get a date. Whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but then you never know. Okay, so it doesn't happen in the dance studio, but they might lure them to their place afterwards or to some place like, do you want to go to this bar that's actually like unsafe or like a sketchy bar, and things like that. And that's where it gets dangerous because
Yeah.
like if I had let's say you have a dance social and this person's coming and that's their game, you know, it's really hard because I know at some dance socials, like at salsa and bachata, they're at restaurants,
Yeah.
they're at bars. So they're kind of like, I know this, they're just like, you're here to dance and that's it. But I think at Fusion and other smaller dance scenes, it's kind of like it being in a small village. Everyone knows you. And so it's
Mhm.
like, who's this new face? Hopefully they're good. But you also know like there's that weird uncle, a weird aunt, or I feel like your face. I also feel like when I go to a bar or a club, I appreciate it when someone says, "Hey, be careful of that guy. He is sketchy."
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
if I went to a dance social and God forbid something bad happened to me, um, and you didn't tell me about it, you didn't say, you said like, "Oh yeah, we all knew that guy was like not good." I would be so livid
Mhm.
and probably upset, traumatized, whatever, that no one's advocated for me, no one protected me, even though they knew the danger was there or the danger
Yeah.
was like likely to be there. If I had some girlfriends come to a dance social and I had to say, "Hey, like, watch out for that person," or even this guy told me it wasn't his event, but he knew some unsafe people, and he went up to the new faces and he said, "Hey, if that guy asks you to dance, feel free to say no. You're allowed to say no." And they said, "Oh, thank you so much for letting us know that," because I think it allowed and gave them permission. And but it just makes me be like, "Ah, I wish dance socials didn't have to have that." But I think that's the trade-off for making something public and open and anyone can come in. And so I ask dance organizers, like, do you have a protocol? What is your behind the scenes hidden protocol on, these people that have had like maybe multiple reports and whatnot? And there are some dance scenes, well, they'll have maybe like a list of people where they're like, you can't, these people are dangerous. We know they're unsafe. So if their faces show up, we're gonna have a chat to them. But I do ask, there's many places where they don't have, I don't think, a policy or like when someone comes in. So I think it's such a complicated situation. And it's one of those things like even people who, if you are not a dance organizer, I am so curious to ask, like, what would you do for a dance social that's supposedly open,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
these are judgment calls that you and I will have to make for Fusion University that like, again, before I mentioned you, we can make a 10,000 page document for like every single possible like scenario for FU and being like, but there's something that's gonna come up that's not gonna cover. And you and I are gonna have to make a judgment call on it. And that judgment call is gonna be in the very gray zone. And someone's not gonna be happy about it, but I know a lot of people will be happy about it, probably. And that's where I feel like as an organizer, you can't care about what everyone thinks about you
Yeah.
because you'll never make a decision then.
Yeah. I agree with I agree first of all, I agree with all of that, and, there is a point that I wanna land on, but before I do that, I'll also say that, yeah, I think, like, there's gonna be moments in time where you have to make a decision on the fly, and you have to go with your gut or go with what you have sort of established. I think, especially when it comes to safety, like when it comes to keeping people safe and in a very real way. Because like think about what dance is, right? We're sharing these moments with people in a room for several hours sometimes. And I think sometimes there are these emotions that people might have and might feel. There are things people are working through, dealing with, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes you get there and you're just on a high, and a message can get crossed that you don't mean to send, right? And like I think there's definitely grace for that, where somebody might um, misread a signal, right? Or even in the way different style when it comes to fusion, people coming from different backgrounds, they might use different kinds of leading or following techniques, different stylization that might be normal in one style, but is like not present at all in another. And I think that that's where like the communication component is super, super important when you're dancing with people, especially new people. But when like especially I don't want to say when it's like when it's clear, because it's not always clear. Sometimes it's a gray area, it's a gray zone, type of thing. But like when you feel uncomfortable, when you feel like something crosses a line for you, I think it's really important, whether you're a lead or a follow, that you talk about it. And I'm always going to advocate that you talk to the organizers, because I believe that like if something happens and it's an issue, it's a problem, they need to know about it, especially because they might have a suspicion, right? They might be like, was it James Dokes and Dexter? The like you can't prove it, but you have a feeling. You're like, I don't know about this person. I don't know, and reporting helps keep things clear, where it's like if something is happening and there's a pattern of behavior, 5 people, 6 people, 7 people are complaining about the same thing and the same person, then there's a talk that needs to be had. And maybe again, maybe it's innocent and it's just a difference in style or something like that. And usually, if that's the case, it gets cleared up and you never hear from it again. But if that's not the case, that needs to be documented. That needs to be that needs to be recorded so that others don't get trapped. The second thing is that when you're in these places and you're in these situations, like I'm always going to advocate that you talk to the person directly. That like if something happens that makes you feel uncomfortable, that you can use your nonverbal cues. You can use your, for example, if someone's trying to pull you in a close embrace and you don't want to be in close embrace, you can whoop, hands go up, right? You gently but firmly push. No, thank you. That's not what I want to do, right? But especially with what I've really loved about what you and I have gotten to do in our practicas is like actually say to people, hey, like ask, are you comfortable with lifts? Are you comfortable with dips? Are you comfortable with close embrace? Or say, yes, I'm comfortable with these things. I'm comfortable with lifts, dips, close embrace, things like that, right? Just from a safety component, a communication component, all that stuff. It's important to establish that. It's like as you get to know people, as you get to make these, these relationships and these friendships and these deep bonds, you know, you'll know, like you'll know for the most part who is who. But even then, just because they gave consent in the past doesn't mean they're giving consent in the present. So like it's something that needs to be constantly confirmed. You know what I mean? Someone might be injured, and you're like, oh, we always do lifts. And the one time that you're like, oh, I'm not going to ask, you do something, and they're like, oh, they don't know, they, right? And something happens, and now you're paying hospital bills, and it's a bad situation, So like it's super important to check in with people and to check in with the people you're dancing with as well as the organizers. But another thing is that to that comment about what you said about like if something happened and no one told you about it, like that feeling right there, like that's so real. And I feel like a lot of the time, and I understand it, I get it, right? Like I think we have this thought of I don't want to spread rumors, I don't want to be a part of sharing information that's not mine. And me personally, I don't like sharing information that's not mine. I don't like sharing stuff that's like if it's not my story to tell, I don't want to go around and spreading it. I very much believe like, hey, if someone told me something in confidence, I want to keep it confidential. But to your point, if it's a situation where others can be harmed, like that's just for whatever reason, others can be harmed, and it's a person who is there, or people who are there, or it's a scene that's not safe or whatever. I have no problem saying, hey, look, I can't get into all of the details because it's not my information to share, not my story to tell. But me personally, I wouldn't recommend it. Me personally, this is not a place that I would go. And if you do go, go with a group of people, preferably, some folks who, who might be a little bit bigger. Maybe they got a judo world championship under their belt or something like that, just in case you need backup. You know what I'm saying? That's what I would say. Otherwise, I would stay away from. Or, hey, look, you're allowed to say no if you feel uncomfortable, especially to like newer dancers, the newer people. Like, hey, if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel good at any time, you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to walk away. Like, you're allowed to say full stop, thank you, and leave. And that's enough. And if there's a person who, like, for, whatever reason, that, especially if I know, I don't have a problem saying like, oh, that's not a person that I would recommend. And if a person wants to, it's like, I don't want to share stuff that's not like mine to share. And of course, like, the longer you've been dancing, the longer you've been around the community, you get to know people. People, like, reputations are so important, which again, I think is the reason why people don't want to, kind of spread rumors. But like, if you're hearing the same thing about a person again and again and again, like, you hear certain things. Some people are like, oh, they're such a great dancer. Oh, they're so this, or they're so fun, or they're so, like, people talk about those things all the time. And they'll talk about the positives so much more than the negative. So, like, even though even though, it's like we don't want to share the negative things, the fact that the negative thing got out usually means, especially in the dance community, from my experience, it usually means that there's maybe more uncomfortable truth there than you would want or that you would hope. It doesn't mean just because you hear a rumor that that's a fact. But again, this is just my experience with it. It's like, okay, I need to be aware, you know? But again, that's been my experience. And I think it's a very important thing that people are aware of what's going on, and that if at any point you don't feel good, you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel safe in a dance or in a space or whatever it is, you're allowed to leave, you're allowed to go, you're allowed to say, you know what, I'm good, thank you, and take your space. Like, your body doesn't belong to anyone that's not you. You know what I'm saying? So
I think this is where reputation in your character is really important, right? Um, because it's important for people to see the values of someone, I think, and how they treat people, and not just you, but all people, right? Someone is going to treat you differently than how they're going to treat me differently. You're a guy, I'm a girl. People have come to us personally and told us stories. We've gotten reports from other dance organizers. And in a way, I feel, I don't know if honored is the right word, but just the fact that people trust us to come forward with these reports and stories means a lot, because in a way there is trust there, right?
I think it's going to be different for everyone because everyone comes from a different place, which is not a black and white answer. I know, but everyone is going to have a different take on it. I'll say what my personal take is on, and an anecdote, because I like stories. But my take is that it's different if it's just like one thing, one story, one report, whatever it is, right? Like, I think, for example, if someone was like, "Oh, I didn't really like dancing with Drang. It wasn't that good." That's like, okay, that's like one person's opinion, whatever. How many people are saying that? I haven't heard anyone say that. I've heard people rave about, like, "Oh my gosh, Drang is amazing. She's so good. Ugh. Oh my gosh." And it's just like, all right, I get it. Like, she's dope. Like, calm down. All right. All
A little
right.
awkward, Caleb.
I'm trying to give you praise. You're always like, "Oh, you never give me compliments or whatever," but
This is not
you,
true.
you hear it here, right? So, um, no, but like, that's one thing. But like, if multiple people are saying the same thing, then it's something that I'm gonna pay more attention to because I'm hearing it more. So like, if I hear something from, from two or three people, I'm like, okay, that's a pattern, right? Anything more than that, and I'm inclined to, again, whether I have a confirmation of that or not, I'm going to lean away from that. Like, I'm not going to lean into it. It's like if I have three friends telling me that this restaurant is not good and that they've had bad experiences, well, I don't want to waste my money. I'm not going to just show up there and say, well, these are three of my friends. They know me fairly well, and I know them, and I know their character, and I know they're not going to tell me something they don't believe is true. But let me go and check it out anyways. Like, they all said how they were stuck to their toilet for, 5. I'm like, why? I don't need to do that. I don't need to find out. Why am I gonna do? And I'm also not gonna recommend other people go and do the same. But some people are like, no, I need to experience it for myself. I want to make sure I have, an answer for myself. It's like, all right, cool. Like everyone is different, but for me, I'm not. I don't want to vote with my dollar. I don't want to vote with my money on things that I don't believe in or support. And if there are behaviors or actions or things that I catch wind of, or I witness, or I see, or I'm going to lean away from it, which is different than if I know that something is something, then I'm very much, I have no problem saying absolutely, absolutely not, absolutely not. You know what I mean? But so I think it's like if it's gray where it's like it's not confirmed or it's up in the air, that's where I'm more so just like I'm gonna take a step back. But if it's something where I'm like, oh, I definitely know, navigating that place of like, what is defamation and what is not is tricky, but I'm definitely leaning away from it. Super recently, actually, there was a festival. It was actually a salsa festival in Chicago that was supposed to happen, and there was a lot of things that came out. You can probably find it on Instagram if you like Google it. I don't want to just be out here like, oh my gosh, the tea is hot, right? But like there was a lot. I mean, there was some interest there. I was like, oh, I might be out in that area around the time. Maybe I'll pop on over. And then seeing all this, it was a big blow up. And one of the things that happened is one person, came forward about abuse that they had unfortunately been the victim of. And then there was that back and forth online. They were like, no one did anything. They didn't speak up. They didn't protect me. So I'm coming out with my story because, X, Y, and Z. And then it's like more people started opening up about their stories too, about the same person. They were like, wow, this has been a pattern. This person has been in the community for this long, and people knew. And it was crazy because you saw different people with different sides. And there were some people who knew the person. You have people who were defending them. And they're like, oh, well, they're a good person and this, that, and the third. And it's like, they're vouching for their friend. But then multiple people come out like, oh no, actually at this event and at this thing, this happened, and he did this to me there. And it became abundantly clear that the quote unquote friends were to some degree culpable. Like they saw, they knew, they recognized it, but they were like, oh, I don't want to admit that this happened, or I don't want to see it, or I don't want to, whatever it was. They, in that instance, they chose their friend over protecting the broader community. And maybe they only knew about one incident or one situation, but because of that, multiple people were hurt. And it wasn't even like it was just this person. Other people were sharing about other, and it had this rippling effect, not even just in that area, but at least in the United States, right? In major scenes, people started coming out about different stories, and there was a movement towards having these conversations about consent and about safety and about but it was like things that happened after instead of things that happened before. They were reacting to it. And it's like, okay, I'm glad we're talking about it now, but we should have been talking about this before. We should have been having, hey, by the way, thank you all for being here in class, or thank you for coming to the social. But let's do a quick check-in. Make sure that whatever style it is, right? Like make sure that you're checking in with your partner. No means no. This that like little things like that. Taking down, reports. Keeping these incidents locked in. I can't tell you how many people. It's an uncomfortable number of people that I've heard tell me how they have gotten licked in the last couple of months on the social dance floor in multiple styles. It's like, why is that a thing? And like, I don't want to make light of it or joke about it in any way, shape, or form. But it's like, it's such a ridiculous thing. I think for me as a guy, like I've had different situations happen. I've had people grope me and things like that. So I can only imagine how much more it would be because like I'd like to think I'm a dude who looks like he can take care of himself in this situation if he needs to take care of himself. You know what I'm saying? I think I have a little bit of a posture and a face where if something happens, I can kind of turn it on and be a little bit like, hey, back up. So I can imagine that if someone doesn't have the giant cauliflower ear and random scars and cuts, that someone might take that as, oh, this is going to be, this is someone I can kind of I can get away with trying to take something from, or trying to harass them. And that just shouldn't be the case. So as an organizer or a facilitator or a teacher or a DJ or whatever, I do think there should be some proactive step or steps towards keeping people safe. And if that means being uncomfortable and talking and saying, hey, look, you might be my friend or you might be a person who we all look up to, but like your behavior is a problem, then so be it. Do what you got to do, but like we got to keep people safe.
Yeah. How many more people need to get hurt before we take action? Like, why do we wait for things to get so bad
Oh,
and then we go, oh, we should maybe do something about it? Why are we as a whole or a community or as humans reactive instead of proactive, even though a lot of us
that's
have seen the signs?
mm,
There's this friend I have that is, her aunt is a lawyer for people for cases where kids are abused, assaulted, molested. And one thing she said was, it is never a one time incident. Like people don't just do one kid and they're like, okay, I'm good, I'm done. It's repeated behavior. And so when these people are not caught, or when people in these dance scenes are not stopped or said, hey, because of your actions, you're not welcome here anymore until you change. When people don't say anything, it allows for more people to get hurt. I'm glad we are talking about this now because when this came up probably a month ago, um, I think you and I were so much more upset and livid that like I'm glad we're talking about it now because I had time to think about it, process it, and be like, okay, how do we want to approach this conversation? Because when you're angry, you're just like, that's it, we're gonna just announce everything and be like, don't go here, don't go there, blah, blah, blah,
we're gonna put them on a list. We're gonna drop it on Twitter. No, no, no. Let me chill. Let me chill. Let me chill. Let me chill.
I think people don't realize the impact of no action, the impact of not speaking up. And this is what happens. And I think again, going back to like, well, they're not my friend. I don't know them, or I don't want to like get into the drama. It's like I think there's when we fear too much on one way, that's why these things can happen. Um, Also another thing is when someone says like, I've never had an issue with that person. I'm gonna say this. It's more like when a guy says like,
Oh,
I've never had an issue with that dude.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, I just want to scream and be like, well,
That
yeah,
irks me.
because you don't have boobs, okay?
That no, that irks me because it's like well, mm, that would to me this is just me speaking as a black man, right? Like that's like me being concerned about like racism or like the police or whatever it is, and then someone saying, "Well, I've never had a problem." Like, well, Jefferson, you probably haven't had a problem with that because of reasons that may or may not involve our cultural backgrounds, right? There might be a reason or two that you aren't experiencing the same things that I am. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for sharing your perspective, but save it, right? It's like that yeah that to me when I hear those kind of responses, I'm hearing, well, I don't want to take the emotional capacity that I don't want to sit in the space of, what, maybe I'm not at the center of everything and my experience isn't the only experience that matters. That's what I hear essentially, shh, be quiet,
Yeah.
when I hear that sort of thing. um Anyways, I'll calm down now.
I think sometimes people like to hope or think or maybe be like, hey, I don't see color. I don't discriminate. I think everyone is should be treated equally. But the reality is the world doesn't see you that way. The world doesn't, you know what I mean? So it's like I don't see color, but the world sees me in color, unfortunately. Okay, that's the reality. We love it when the one day when that world comes to that part where we actually are treating each other equally. That's not the reality right now. And I think when you find out that maybe it is a friend, like for example, if cases came up about you and it was a lot, I would be very surprised. I would probably have to stop everything, question how I want to move forward, go through a whole grieving process. And I know other people like that have to go through that because you're like, I didn't because sometimes the friend can act like a friend to you,
Yeah.
amazing person. But I
Hmm.
think people have different sides to them, right? And sometimes when they have their own traumas and things that they have to deal with, honestly, everyone can benefit from therapy, but it's just they can flip on other people. And people are very different in relationships too, So, but I think there's so much gray zone, right? So, okay, so I have a question for you. When you said go to an organizer, or at first tell the person directly, be if you're like, I'm not comfortable. But some people don't feel comfortable because maybe it's a big dude that might punch up. I don't know. And then you say, okay, go to the organizer and let them know they need to know. But I've had situations where there is an abuse of power. And what do you do when management, organizers, or their team, you feel like you can't trust them? Or it's like a salsa world, a top DJ that's popular, that's bringing in like all the sales, all the money, the crowd, and that kind of stuff. Like that's why these people are showing up and raking in the money.
Yeah. Honestly, so I'll give a serious answer rather than my normal response, which is leaning into chaos. You document everything. I think when you have a situation like that, especially with an abuse of power, you document it because even it's just like if you were at work, and I've had situations like this with projects, working with different clients, different people, they have different processes, different systems, businesses have different ways of going about doing things. I document everything, like the emails, the messages, all that stuff. Like I keep track of all of that. And even when we have a voice call, if we have something that we agree to, we have a rate that we agree on, we have some kind of thing, and they want to make a change to the project, I say, okay, cool. Just confirming you said X, Y, and Z. I'll write that down. I'll send it back as an email, and then say, this is what we talked about. This is what we discussed on this date at this time with these things, and then essentially, have them confirm. And once they do, I'm like, cool, that's a record. My thing is, if I'm in a situation where someone is coming to me with something and I can do something about it, I want to. But that's not always the case. And sometimes it's not my place to step in, right? It may not be my place to step. And honestly, sometimes you shouldn't tell me because the way that I might want to react emotionally is not very mature or constructive. Um, but keeping track of these things, keeping track of a situation is what I'm going to advocate for if there's an abuse of power like that, like where it's a person who they're a top whatever, and they're a cash cow, and people want to protect that. They want to, they want. It's like, no, well, I'm going to keep some kind of record of that. Whether it's a conversation, if you can get a conversation, you can get audio or something like that, sure. But like, if you went to the organizers, okay, document at this day, on this, at this time, on this place, this was the conversation. This is what was said. They basically told me, too bad, or maybe this is what you brought this on yourself, or whatever kind of thing, right? You document everything that happens as it's happening, right? Or immediately after, because in the event that you need to be able to prove, or you need to, where it comes down to, my word versus their word or whatever it is, you'll have records. They won't. You'll have receipts. They won't. And then if there's something that happens where others come forward and they talk about it, about something that happened, now you have a trail. You have something to show that, like, okay, I did what I was supposed to do in the right way. But also my other thing is I'd advocate to get out, like to leave, if you can, to leave, and then also to share why you left. Because I think that's an important thing as well. If there's an abuse of power, if there are people who are bullies, or they're trying to silence that this is me as Kalen. I am not a legal power or authority or anything like that, but that has been what has served me, and that has helped me in instances. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. I don't know, what do you think would be a good way to deal with that, especially with like an abuse of power? Like, how would you deal with that, or how have you dealt with that?
Well, I have dealt with that before in a workplace. It's gonna be like a side tangent, so for time's sake, I probably won't get into details, I guess. If it have to be like part two, um, when I actually like worked at Disney, and it was some of the darkest years of my life. So when it comes to this, I think about um, there's a power in numbers, and so if you can kind of look at it as like corporate, right? So when it's kind of like when you start having conversations with other, let's say, like survivors or people that have dealt maybe with similar issues, and eventually some names come up and stuff like that, right? And people start talking about it. I had this experience too. Oh, you did too. Interesting, interesting. But um if only one person speaks up, this feels so disempowering sometimes. If one person speaks up, you're like, it can be easily brushed off. And the true thing is, like, at the end of the day, it's about the money. There's a power in numbers of voices being spoken, right? So if you as a whole come and speak up, or say what it is on Twitter, this is my experience, or Instagram and stuff like that, it becomes a PR issue for them, for the dance scene, for the corporation. And when it becomes a PR nightmare, that's when it affects their numbers, their money, their bottom line. And that's when, unfortunately, that's what will poke them enough or stick a fire under their butt to finally take action. Not because sometimes organizers or maybe corporations or management, board of directors want to. It's more so because they feel like it's ethically like we should be doing this. It's more of like, oh, this person's a liability, and now we need to do something about it. Like, even with Harvey Weinstein, they said the same thing, like, his board direct or whatever, his, like those management people, they were on him being like, "Hey, this guy is a liability for us." They weren't saying like, "Oh, this is, we should boot him out because he doesn't align with our
This is
values."
morally reprehensible. We
Exactly.
can't believe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of like, this is gonna be a money problem for all of us, And they were right, when that did happen. So, uh so I think that it's just yeah, the talking to other people about it. Yes, I know I'm glad that people come up to us and tell us and shares their stories and their reports, but keep in mind that I think what people don't see is it is become heavy on us as well. And I think how it can help is not just coming to us, but talking to the community. Because most likely, if you've been experiencing something, you're probably not the only one. And so when you start sharing your stories, there's a difference between that and like spreading rumors, right? When you start sharing stories, people go like, "Oh, I see what's going on now. I'm more aware," right? But I understand that not everyone is like a fighter. There's people in the community where they're like they'll listen, but there's people that will fight and advocate for you and be like, I feel like one good thing that came out of this is I will say that I didn't know how much of a fighter you were, in terms of advocating for women and other things. It was one of those things where like, we're doing this, we love dance, we're passionate, we're like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. We can talk about it all like, okay, on a podcast, right? Like concepts and like partnering and like, connection and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when this
Yeah.
came up and I saw that you were upset, I was surprised because I think there are a lot of um most men in my life, they usually just go like, "Oh, okay, good to know. I'll just avoid that place." But it is so refreshing when someone's just like, "What the F? This isn't okay. We need to do something about it." Like, I would not allow this to happen to my like the women in my life. And it was one of those things where I was like, "Okay, cool. Like this person has great values and character that I'm working alongside with." And this is yay, yay. Like that's the
Mm.
best. But it was just
That's
very
great.
being like, "Okay, cool. If something happens to me, I know you might." I was gonna say, "You might end up in jail because you might, like, punch them."
I might get in trouble. I might get in
Yeah,
trouble with somebody.
but at the same time, it's like, I
Stern talking twos is what we do out here.
yeah,
Stern talking twos.
this is my bodyguard. No, but it was very, like, it's nice as a woman to, um, to see that, and I not encouraging violence, but it's just I encourage other people to advocate for others, and because of that, I feel safer, especially when you're in the room. I'm like, "Okay, if something happens, I know." But honest, like, I know some people in the dancing can hold their own, but not every the new faces and everything, those are the easy praise, and I don't want any people new to the dancing to be scared. Um, it's just this is one of those things where there's not a lot. Like most people I think are actually great. They're good, that kind of stuff. It's always like the one or two or three that in each scene that and sometimes they travel to different dance scenes too when they try to do this. And so it's like that quote where it's like a small few bad apples will spoil the bunch. So we don't want to scare people away, but we want to acknowledge that it does exist. It is a complicated, a gray situation a lot of the times too, but also to empower you to speak up, to talk about it, take action, and also protect other people in the community and prevent it from happening, instead of waiting for more people to get hurt. And, another point I want to make is if my non-dancer girlfriends come to a dance scene and they say, "Hey, is it safe if I go to this place?" And if I hesitate and I say, "I'm not sure," that speaks volumes.
Yeah. 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 That. Yes. Yes to that. Like if there's a place, if I can't recommend it when I'm not there, type of thing. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, look, I don't know. Hey, I don't know how it's gonna be. It could be really good. You know what I mean? It could go another way though. It's like it's a no. That's a no. Um, I had a question for you. Navigating personal relationships where the person, and this is based off of a situation that that I have been in the past, where the person was like, good reputation, very popular in the scene, all that good stuff, and foundational. Maybe not organizer, but foundational, definitely important. But then something happens where several people have left the dance scene because of their behavior. and no one has talked to him about it, or no one has said anything to them about it. No one has been like, yo, you can't do this. This is not okay, because, well, their reputation has just been so great up until that point. How do you navigate a personal relationship like that? How would you, or how might you deal with something like that, especially if you haven't even been around when that stuff was happening, you know?
I would probably ask around because eh, I'm because I need to know. In
Mm.
terms of I don't need probably need to know the whole entire receipt paper trail, but I think I
Yeah.
would say like, "Hey, has something happened? Like, why are a lot of you guys not going? I noticed that." And I think when you come with a curiosity, it allows people to open up maybe about their story or their incident or maybe the person they know that was maybe affected
Yeah.
or what went down instead of I think there's a difference between like, "Ooh, so what happened? Why is no one going there?" versus like, "Hey, I noticed, um, that people aren't going all of a sudden. Like, is there something going on? Or is there something you think I need to know?"
Yeah.
You know, and you see that tone. And usually you can tell from how a person asks, right? Um, and then that allows the conversation to be like, "Well, I didn't have a good incident there. Yeah, I didn't have a good time there because this happened." Or like, but it does get again the gray zone where someone's like, "I've been told that there's this XYZ happened. I wasn't there, but I now don't feel safe enough to go to it anymore."
Yeah.
And there are other people I'll be like, "I've never had issues, so I'll go." And I think that's where it'll be like a judgment call on the individual to figure out if they want to go or not. Because even as organizers and if people ask us what happened, at different dance scenes, we what's the right word? Like, we have to be not political. We have to in a way, we have to be I feel like sometimes HR where, like, they can't tell you the full story,
Diplomatic, maybe?
um,
Or
because
like,
you don't wanna tell the victim's name. You don't wanna tell everyone, like,
yeah, yeah.
it's kinda like you kinda have to be HR where you can tell the story, but you can't reveal everyone's name
Like
because
you have to protect the
yeah, like, we
people
have to
in
protect
the
the
story. Yeah.
survivor as well, right? Because there is a possible backlash that happens.
Retaliation is real. Yeah,
Retaliation is
that's
real.
real.
So it's one of those things where it's like there there is an invisible mental load that you and I carry, and I'm sure other dance organizers that they carry. So I just wanna say, please be kind to us when you see us next time. We just want to start up practicas and, all that stuff. That's all we want to
We
do.
just want to
Just
dance.
throw the dance scene. But
But you
also, we
know
love
what?
talking about
I
stuff.
will say, I also just want to just add really quickly that that when it comes to those kind of situations, that it can be really intimidating to be the first person to speak up. It can be really hard to be the first person to say something, but that is so important. And I just want to say, like, if something has happened and you need encouragement, or you need somebody to just be like, yo, you need to do it. I'm on your side. I got you. Like, it's a lot. It is taxing. I ain't gonna lie to you. But also at the same time, it's worth it. I think it's one of those things where it's like sometimes you do need encouragement. Like, you need to hear someone say, no, like, you need to tell your story. Like, or you at least need to go to the powers that be, and like, like, start advocating for yourself, because you're not just advocating for you, you're advocating for past and future victims as well. So, like, yeah, like, sharing your story and like advocating for yourself is not just about you. It really does carry on to the whole. Um, and being the first person sometimes is really hard, but that's what, like, leadership is about sometimes. Like, you have to be the first one to do something. You have to be the first one. And it might be that you are the first one and there's nothing for some time and there's just a silence and you're like, wow, I'm here and it's just me up front. But because you step out, because you say something, because you step up, others feel empowered to do it. And it may not happen instantly, but when it does happen, it's like, okay, because someone did, like, even with the Me Too movement, because someone did, right? It had that effect where it trickled, and then that trickle became a flood, and it was like, okay, now we see change. But it took so long to get to that point because so many people were being silenced, and all that. So yeah, sorry, I don't
Power
want
in
to like
numbers.
rant too
Like
much,
I
but
said,
yeah,
power in
there's
numbers
power in numbers.
when we come together. Look, if we can be the first to start talking about it on this platform, maybe other honest conversations can be had amongst dance friends, amongst ethical organizers, and more. And if we are the first to get tomatoes thrown in our face for it, for people to start, you know, saying things towards
I
us
love
against us.
tomatoes, so please. I'm
I
good.
was not expecting that.
I'm like,
Actually, for real though, like produce is starting to get expensive at the
no,
supermarket.
it really is. Like, hey, help a brother out. I won't
Yeah.
be mad.
Like if tomatoes are thrown at us, we'll have grocery bags ready to catch it.
Right? As a background, like, yes, keep going. Yes, yes, yes.
We'll take other produce as well. Fresh produce preferably. But if we're gonna be the first to get tomatoes thrown in our face, so be it. At least people can start to feel safer, feel like more courageous or empowered to share their thoughts, their experiences, not just with us, but with others as well. And if we are gonna be the first to make private events, some people are like, "Yeah, exclusive, meh," but you know what? If it is to keep people safe, so be it. At this point, I'm like, "F you. F you."
F you.
But yeah, so hopefully this conversation can spark something amongst people and, don't talk just to us. I mean, we encourage, like, we love it, but also talk to other people that you
Yeah.
feel safe with, that you
Yeah.
trust, because we can't bear it alone. But when we can come together, that's where we can make a difference, right? And that's how our community can connect. It can grow. It can be a safe place for people.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I also want to
Yeah.
ask for any maybe survivors or people that have dealt with very uncomfortable experiences, inappropriate experiences, what would have helped you then and what would help you now? So,
That's
and
a great question.
you can DM us, you can email us, we'll keep you anonymous, but we would love to share that with the community because we right now can only give a perspective of an attendee. But I don't know what's like where like what was the help what could have helped you back then? What can
Mhm.
people do now where you feel that more empowered or like what you wish maybe came out more about this conversation? And maybe there could be a part two. Who knows? If it comes up. So, with that, if you found this episode to be helpful, please share it with a friend that might need to hear it and give us a follow and 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify so the word can get out more about our podcast. You can check us out on social media at Fusion Dance Podcast. Also, check out our dance school at Fusion University. We've included resources down below of the places to go social dancing and whatnot in LA. And also our upcoming classes, privates, and practicas, all that stuff down below in the show notes. And thank you for being here with us, for listening to this somber but a very important conversation and topic. And we will see you next time.